So, hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the latest episode, our latest edition of Inside Out Effect podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Jakes from Healing the Mind and Neuro Reboot Technician. And alongside me is the charismatic man himself and the amazing and the incredible Jonathan Shaw. So, good afternoon to you again, Jonathan.
Afternoon, Stephen. Thank you for that.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
How's your week been? You've had a good week?
It's been a really, really busy week. I'm absolutely knackered, but it's been a very busy week. Yes, it's been good. I've been working hard and helping lots of people, and yes, it's good.
Yeah. Anything in particular, like that? You know, any groundbreaking?
I actually done a lot of physical work this week with people, so I've been doing a lot of. Did a lot of physical work on Saturday. I treated 14 people back to back on Saturday.
Wow.
And helped lots of people with different types of physical pain and things like that. So that was really, really good. One lady in particular, she'd been told that she'd got a bursitis in her shoulder that was been impinged, and they needed to operate. And within about 30 minutes of treating, the pain had all gone in her shoulder, and she couldn't believe how she could move her shoulder fully and there was no pain there. So that was a really great thing. And I had quite a few people that day heal very, very quickly from pains they'd had for many, many years.
Yeah. Just
by doing a few simple little bits and pieces.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, obviously, as you're probably aware if you've listened to other podcasts, Jonathan is the founder of Decoding Pain. And he's also the author of the book Decoding Pain, The Emotional Blueprint to Healing Decoding Pain. And you're also the creator of the DTO system as well. So, and that's what you do, and you do it very successfully. I'm using that system to great effect. Yeah. As you well know, you had a good result this week, didn't you? Yeah, yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah. So I went to. I travelled to London yesterday. I don't do it very often, but I travelled to London yesterday, and there was a young girl. She was only 28. I think it was about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. She lost her job, and it was a massive problem for her. And since then, she went into severe depression. Yeah. And she's basically been stuck in a really bad way for about two years. And when I turned up and said hello to her, she just instantly burst into tears. Yeah. And so I knew that something was massively going on. And after speaking to her, she had completely damaged all of her confidence. She didn't think she was going to get a job, and she's been stuck. She's got no money. The whole lot that goes along with losing a job and not being able to move forward and being terribly stuck. Anyway, I spent it was about 2 hours in total using the DTO system, and I was able to clear all of the emotional blocks, all of the emotional responses to losing that job. And and within about 2 hours, I cleared the whole lot. And it was great because afterwards we was chatting to a friend who joined us afterwards, and she actually turned around and said, this is the happiest I've been for as long as I can remember. So that was such an amazing thing for me. It made me feel amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome when it happens.
Yeah, it's awesome. Great. I mean, she was just couldn't stop laughing. She was giggling and giggling. Yeah. So yeah, it's really, really great. And this is the power of what we do. And
that's why we do what we do.
That is why we do what we do.
Because people just heal and they change, and you see the change almost instantaneously. You know, the whole problem might not heal straight away, but you do see an instantaneous change in that first session 9 times out of 10, and that's what you want. You want that change in people. Yeah. That's why we do this, and that's why we like helping people, and we know it's possible, and that's why we're trying to educate people so they can see they can have that transformation, that amazing change in them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's such a joy, because I think I think most people get told now by so many different types of information and therapists or whatever it is that they're actually doing. I mean, she'd actually spent 18 months in therapy.
Wow.
She said she's been going for 18 months and it hasn't helped.
Doing what therapy was that? Do you know?
I didn't go down. I just sort of I just said to her, look, whatever you've done, don't worry about it. Just forget about that. This will be different. And she was a little bit sceptical at first, a little bit fearful about it.
That's okay. But everyone is.
Yeah, absolutely. But so she said 18 months and not got anywhere. And in 2 hours, I managed to get rid of the whole thing that was causing all the problems.
See, that's so frustrating, because for people to suffer for so long and spend their time and their money doing something that is traditional, that's supposed to work, supposed to help, and it not get anywhere. It's like these people in pain on Saturday. You know, I had 4 people who had kind of instant healings. Yeah. Everybody else got better, but I had 4 people who had kind of their body healed quickly, and they'd had the problem for years. It's very frustrating that traditional, they've been in pain for so long, believing nothing can help them, and then you do something a little bit different and it works. And I find it so annoying that so many people suffer, whether it's physical or emotional health, and they're just doing the wrong things because they don't know any better, because they're not taught that actually there's something else out there, that actually something else actually works. So it's lovely to see when people change that quick, and but it's frustrating you have to suffer for so long, 2 years. And some people suffer for longer. The lady, one lady, she had sciatica for a good 10 or 15 years, and within half an hour her sciatic pain had gone. That's frustrating for people. That's annoying, That's not good. That's really, really bad.
Well, I ended up having 2 operations of mine, so I know exactly how bad the back problem is.
Exactly. So it's nice when people, get better and they finally heal and they get their lives back.
Yeah. So today's podcast is going to be called "What You Don't Know About Stress and How It Affects Us." Yeah. And just before we probably go on to that, I was just going to say that what we're open. We've got several talks that we're doing, we've got coming up. And so if there's anybody out there that's listening to this podcast who would be very interested in myself and Jonathan together coming along to do a talk at either your business regarding stress, anxiety, depression, and how we can heal it in the workplace. If you're looking to do other talks regarding around anxiety or around stress, I know we're doing one about law of attraction, because obviously we've got a very good take on that and why it doesn't work for people.
Yeah, we've got that coming up in June.
But this is really just to reach out to any of the listeners who's thinking about or putting on an event, or would like myself and Jonathan to come and discuss in a bit more detail about what it is we do and how we can really get you to look at things differently. And
we'd love to come and do that.
So
half of the thing is getting to look at something differently. That's what we want to share, the different approach, because half the problem is the way people look at things, and it's the way you're looking at it that's the problem. If you flip it and look at it a different way, then you're going to be able to solve it. But the first step is to change your perception, change your way of looking at it, so you can solve it. If you guys want us to come along and share new information of a different way of looking at a problem, then we are more than happy to do that, because that's always the first step, and that's the first part you need to understand. And that's the part that gives you hope. And a lot of what I do certainly is give people hope. That's the first thing in my business. I give people hope by showing them another way, another answer. And once you do that, then they can see new possibilities.
I mean, we are in the fortunate position to actually have a solution.
Yes,
I mean that's ultimately we're in the fortunate position where we can have a solution, and we're not going to come and talk a load of mumbo jumbo because of something we heard, or information repeat about things that we've heard that works. What we're actually going to talk to you is about the reality of these specific instances, whether it's depression or it's anxiety or whatever, or why law of attraction is not working with you and how energy is being blocked. But we actually have a solution to that, and because we know we have a solution, we can then backward engineer that solution to why things aren't working, and we're able to fix them.
Yes.
And that's the key thing. So
right.
Anyway, so enough of that shameless plug. If you are obviously would be interested in myself and Jonathan coming along to your event or to your business in order to discuss the topics that we cover, then please contact us at insideouteffects@gmail.com. But we're going to move on now to the purpose. Like I said, the purpose of this podcast is what you don't know about stress and how it affects us. And I think every single person that walks this planet has been affected by stress at some point or another.
It's a very stressful world we live in today.
Yes.
It's more stressful, I think, today than it has been, in the past centuries. And stress is a major problem for people. Yeah. But again, as I said earlier on,
I know some people get stressed just getting up. In the
yes,
mornings,
some people stress just getting up in the mornings, and the problem is it's misunderstood. So we want to share the real understanding of stress, so you can understand what it is and why it's happening. There's so many misunderstandings about stress. This is just unbelievable. And stress is really not complicated. It's nice and easy. And if you understand it, you can then go, oh, okay, and you can work your way around it, and you have a solution.
It's also a massive excuse for people to validate the way they behave.
Yes, it can be.
It can, yeah. I mean,
it's a bit of a byword. It's a bit of a watchword. What they call it? What's the word for it? But it's very commonly used these days. Oh, I'm stressed.
Yeah.
And without really understanding what that means, and stress is doesn't quite work.
But it's a get out. It's just a get out to allow your behaviour to be excused or to be able to be a certain way. You're going to say I'm just stressed, and ultimately the problem is a lot of people go, oh, make that an excuse. Oh no, it's all right. Leave him alone or leave her alone. He's stressed out. He's just suffering from stress, but it's not really actually what's going on, and we're going to get underneath get underneath and dig out what really is going on. And so Jonathan's going to talk about in a little bit more detail about what is stress. So if you want to sort of start leading on, we'll go there. What is stress? And
okay, so stress is very, very misunderstood, and stress. People think that stress is something that's happening to us. It's something that someone's doing, or it's just happening to us. We're not creating it in any way. But the reality is, stress is a biological response in our system. Stress is actually our fight and flight response kicking in. That's all stress is. It's a fight and flight response kicking in. And fight and flight is not meant to kick in unless we're actually in danger. So it's not natural for it to kick in under today's circumstances, because the majority of us are not in danger anymore. People think that stress is part of life, and again, it's not part of life unless you're actually in danger. It is a biological response in your body for dangerous situations when your life is either being threatened or someone's actually attacking you.
Yeah.
But it's only for the moment of attack. It's only for the moment of the threat to your life. After that, fight and flight is switched off, but it often doesn't. So if you have actually had an attack on your life, which some people do, there's a good chance that the fight and flight system hasn't switched off yet. And what happens is, when fight and flight continues in the system, we then become ill and diseased. But fight and flight kicks in these days when we're not under attack, when we're just
dropping our keys.
Dropping our keys. Yeah, I said on another podcast, I drop my keys and I go straight into fight and flight. I get angry at the keys. Yeah. Or, going to work, or going to do the shopping, or just driving down the road. Our kids not going to bed.
Too many people in the aisle at Tesco's and Sainsbury's.
Yes, exactly. We go into fight and flight over so many situations these days, and it's crazy. Social media is the most popular one at the moment. It's a massive stressor for a lot of people with social media, which is just mental, because it's like an app on your phone. I had one of my clients literally on the phone to me the other day, and she was trying to work out how to navigate this stress that she gets with social media, and I had to point out, it's an app on your phone. It's nothing. It means nothing. It literally means nothing. The whole social media thing, it really means nothing in the grand scheme of things. It's an app on your phone. That's it. Going to fight and flight over it when people post things, we do it. It happens, but we shouldn't be doing it, because it's complete nonsense in the grand scheme of life. Yeah. It's not important in the grand scheme of life. And it's amazing what people do going to fight and flight, and myself included. I said, I used to drop my keys and I'd go mad. And I don't do that now, by the way. And I've also stopped dropping my keys, which is the irony behind it. But stress is a big problem. But all it really is a biological response of fight and flight. And once we understand that, we know it's actually not who we are.
Yes.
It's not actually the real us. We are having a biological response. Now, when I say a biological response, I don't mean it's part of your DNA or in your cells and you need medication to change it, or it's chemical. It's not what I mean. I mean it's just an inbuilt response in us for if we're in danger. But we're not in danger. So the question is, why are we perceiving we're in danger when we're actually not? The real question is, why are we reacting that way when no one's actually threatening our life?
Yeah, correct.
Now, obviously, there's two different scenarios. A scenario one where you have had your life threatened, but fight and flight has stayed on.
Yes.
Or scenario two where your life's not being threatened, but you're going to fight and flight.
Yes.
Well, scenario one, when you've had your life threatened, but you're not coming out of fight and flight, that's because you're still perceiving the danger exists. You're still frightened that the person's around the next corner, or you're still in the shock of it, because the fight and flight is a shock state. When you go into fight and flight, it stems from a moment that shocks you. We call it a Udin moment, something unexpected,
I was going to
dramatic.
Say, go on. I was just going to say, for people that don't know what Udin moment is,
it's unexpected, dramatic, isolating with no coping strategy.
Right, okay.
And it kind of sounds like this.
Yeah.
We don't do it on the outside, we normally do it on the inside, but it's when we get shocked, and that moment of shock puts us into fight and flight response. But that moment of shock can actually stay in our system, and we don't realise it, we often don't know it, but trauma can put us into that fight and flight. And if you've had a moment where your life has been threatened, that can stay with you. And that's partly what PTSD is. PTSD is someone gone off to the war, perhaps, and or they might be in the fire brigade or the police, and they've either seen very nasty things, or they've had their life threatened in some way. Their life has been attacked, and that trauma has stayed with them. So that's the one instance, but fight and flight hasn't switched off because you still think you're in danger. The other response is where your life's not in danger, but you act like you're in fight and flight for some reason. And this is the more interesting one. This is I don't mean that. So that's not correct. When I say it's the more interesting one, I mean it's the harder one to understand, because at least when someone's had their life threatened, you can go, well, that makes sense. You can see their life threatened,
or from a traumatic experience.
From a traumatic experience, you can go, okay, we can see that, and that can all be switched off. You switch it off with DTO. But the really bizarre one is, why are we going to fight and flight when our life's not being threatened? And the reason is, and some of you may not like this, this may not be what you're expecting, and you may not like to hear it, but if you want to solve it, then you've got to understand this. The reason is, we are taking the situation personally. So we are
It's as simple as that, isn't it?
It's as simple as that. We are taking that situation personally, and we're making it mean something about us. And what I mean by that is, the beliefs that are created in that moment are about us. So what I learned using the DTO system is that when we go into fight and flight, all beliefs created in that moment are about us, because fight and flight is purely for the person experiencing it. So when I go into fight and flight, that's to get me out of danger. When Steve goes into fight and flight, that's to get him out of danger. It's not for anyone else. It's personal to us. So
that'll mean something to me or about me.
So on that level. That's right. So when Steve goes into fight and flight, it is making it mean something about him. So all beliefs in that moment are about him. They're not about the external world. They're not about what the person did, or what the person said, or how the person reacted, or what happened. They're only about us. And it's those beliefs that are important to switch off. But basically, we're taking it personally. And that's the problem. The thing with Facebook, social media, we take everything personally that we see, hear, read on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, we are taking it personally.
Yeah, I just want to say, because up until probably about 2, 3, 4, I don't know how long ago, a few years back now, I was so hyper stressed out, and I was always angry and blah, 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 blah. But what I came to realise is that I'd learnt and been taught from my environment is to take everything personally.
Yeah.
And so what happened is, every single thing I took personally. And it wasn't until working with yourself and been going back to switch off all of those things, what they actually meant to me and about me, and changing those beliefs, that now my stress levels are pretty much zero.
Yeah.
I mean, they are generally pretty much zero. And even when I do start getting into a bit of stress, it's quite an uncomfortable situation, and I don't like being in it at all.
Yeah.
And so and then I work out what it is and switch it off, and then I'm back to sort of like homeostasis again, where I'm sort of leveled out. But so I mean, I just wanted to reiterate that is that it was my own personal stresses and all the stuff that I went through, and I was very, very, very stressed. Well, I'm having a large business and etc. But I did make a lot of the things personal to me.
Yeah.
And that's what was causing me all of my stress.
We do. We're not consciously aware of this. I will point this out.
Yeah.
It's not something we go around going, oh, it must be about me, because we're not taught this. But the basic example I give is my keys. This is actually a true story. Steve's not joking. When I said I got angry at my keys, I did. I would drop my keys, I'd get angry. But the belief I was having about myself was, I'm stupid. Yeah. I'm clumsy.
Nothing goes right for me.
Yeah, I'm an idiot. And it
always happens to me.
Always happens to me. We're making it all about us. When I switched it off with DTO, 2 things happened.
Oh, I dropped my keys.
1, I just went, I've dropped my keys.
Yeah, exactly.
And 2, I actually stopped dropping my keys, because the fact that I felt this way actually caused me to drop my keys more. Because I believed this about myself, it actually made me drop my keys and become a lot more clumsy.
Yeah.
Because the belief actually drives the behaviour. So if you believe deep down that you're stupid or not intelligent, you will act in certain scenarios like you're stupid and not intelligent. Yeah. And people will look at you, and you'll think they're judging you as stupid, but you're already judging yourself as stupid. That's a very basic example.
Yeah, I mean, I speak to a lot of people that I work with, and one of the first things I tell them before I start doing the process is that all beliefs drive behaviours.
Yeah.
And that's a really key thing.
Yeah.
Because, if you believe you're going to get knocked over, you ain't going to cross the road because you believe you're going to get knocked over.
That's right.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
All beliefs drive behaviours, and it's very difficult for people to maybe comprehend that or understand that. But where you are exactly in your life and how you are and how you show up and how you act is fundamentally really all your beliefs.
Yeah, and it really does. I learned this way of saying it a long time ago. What you believe will be your reality.
Yes,
and I've totally believed that. I just didn't always have the best system to switch it off at the time.
Yeah.
I do now have a very cool system to switch it off, which is DTO, to find the right beliefs. But I've always believed that to be the case, and I can kind of prove it to you right now. I'm going to prove it to you right now over... I don't need science or technology to prove it. I'm going to prove it to you right now over the microphone. I want you to, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, look at something in front of you and pick it up. Whatever's in front of you, pen, cup, just pick it up. I'll give you a few seconds. I'm sure you've done it by now. So to pick that cup up, your brain, you had to think about picking it up. Your brain then went, oh, I want to pick the cup up. It sent a signal down your arm, down your neck, down your shoulder, to your fingers, to move the arm, to open the fingers, to grip around the object, pick it up and bring it towards you. Your brain told you to do that. You had the thought, I want to pick it up, and your brain told you to do that. So if that thought creates that amount of movement to pick something up, imagine what a thought would do that tells you, I can't pick it up, or I'm no good, or I'm stupid. The thought process is exactly the same. It's still telling the brain something, except this time you're telling the brain you can't do something, or you're no good. It's exactly the same, but that's actually going to stop you. If the thought makes you pick it up, the reverse thoughts are going to cause you problems.
Yeah, so if you believe you can pick it up, you will pick it up.
Exactly.
If you don't believe you'll pick it up, you won't pick it up.
It's a really silly example, but I'm trying to prove to you that your thoughts create your world. Because if you didn't think I want to pick it up, you wouldn't have picked it up in the first place.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, you have to think about it first. It may be totally unconscious. You didn't sit there going, I really want to pick that up today.
Yeah.
You don't think like that. It's a bit like playing an instrument. If anyone out there's ever played an instrument, or driving a car. When you first drive a car, you're thinking gas, pedal, clutch, gear, you're thinking the road. But after a while, it becomes automatic. You don't think about those things anymore. You've programmed it into your unconscious. And that's where the beliefs lie, in the unconscious.
Yeah.
So when
we have good beliefs and we have bad beliefs.
We do, that's right.
Yeah.
But they're all buried in the unconscious. They've become automated and we don't realise it. And it's those beliefs that are being triggered when we go into fight and flight. So we go into fight and flight, all those beliefs get triggered, and we end up stuck in this stress state which we shouldn't actually be in. Does that make sense, Steve?
It makes absolute sense, yes. And so, I know a lot of people that deal with it. And so fundamentally what they're ultimately doing is they're reacting to an external trigger.
Yep.
And they make that external trigger make it personal about them.
Yes.
And in that moment they now go into a biological reaction, which we call stress.
Yes.
It's as simple as that.
As simple as that. So the basic example, me dropping my keys, I would drop my keys, that was a trigger. Seeing the keys drop, I would then go straight into fight and flight and get angry. Anger is a pure stress emotional response. And then I'd make it something about me, as in, I'm no good, I'm useless, I'm pathetic, why do things happen to me, all those things. And that would stress me out. It's that simple, and it happens constantly. And it happens in small situations like that, or in big situations with arguments with your spouse, being fired from a job.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's the way someone looks at you or talks to you, or their tone of voice, or just, it can be absolutely anything. It can be even sometimes you can go into stress when somebody's not done anything.
Yes.
You perceive them that they've done something, but they haven't done anything.
Yeah. One of my clients last week, she had an amazing realisation, absolutely amazing. She's a lovely lady. And her partner are coming to see me because they're struggling in their relationship. And this lady's really lovely, but she keeps going into fight and flight within the relationship. She keeps getting anxious and she feels powerless. And basically, we found a recent trigger, which was basically, her partner came home and dropped a load of musical instruments around the dinner table. When she was preparing dinner, and she went straight into fight and flight over this. And it basically traced back to a memory. She felt powerless, by the way, because she felt like no one was listening to her. But it traced back to a memory where she was younger with her siblings and her mum, and their cat got run over. And at that time, her brother and sister were younger, so they ran to mum, and mum comforted the brother and sister. And my client was on the outside of this. She was the older sibling, and she perceived that there was no room for her in this scenario. There was no way her mum could cuddle her and her brother and sister. So she sat on her own and went away, in fact, to her bedroom, I believe, and dealt with the grief alone. So from that moment on, she perceived there was no room for her. She wasn't worthy, and she was alone. She had to deal with things alone. When I switched that off,
rejected and unloved, and
all of that stuff. When we switched all that with DTO, she looked at that memory and went, "Why didn't I just go and hug them?"
Yeah.
She couldn't see. It was totally illogical, the original perception, and it was kind of a weird perception. It's how perceptions affect us. Yeah. But she just went, "Well, I could have just gone and hugged them," and she could have. That was the case. She could have gone and hugged them.
I think in a lot of cases, if a lot of people that are listening to it out there, and they probably will actually see that. Most cases is everything. It's the way we misperceive things. It's all about
most things are misperception. Yeah,
misperception.
And even if something, most of the time, a lot of people see me, their perception is slightly inaccurate. Even if what happened actually happened, it's the perception of what it means to you that's the problem.
Yes.
It's the perception of how we've taken it personally that's the problem. So yes, someone may have been nasty to you. Someone may have broken your heart. We've all been there when we've had a heart broken. Yeah. But it's the perception of what it means to us that's the problem, not actually what they did. But what we do is we blame the other person constantly. And I'm not excusing people's behaviour, don't misunderstand me. We should all take responsibility for our own behaviour. That's another part.
But it's how we react to other people's...
It's how we react to other people's behaviour. And we can choose to react. We can decide how we're going to react. And if we're struggling to choose, then there's a way to switch it off because we've just got into fight and flight.
And I see that in so many people that, how they react to, and it's just their language that they use as well. I see it in so many people, how they react and how they respond, and sometimes it's disproportionate reactions. It's also just they become very it's all about them, and ultimately what's happening then is that they're now, from that point forward, is they've now got an emotional blueprint around that event that's always going to, every time they go back and visit it, they'll always run those same emotions and those same feelings because they've made it to them and about them.
Yeah.
Which is a really great segue, really, because what we would like to do is also talk about the myths and the misunderstandings about stress. And so, I know for a lot of people that probably don't understand what stress is, this might give you a little bit of a guideline to actually understand what these misconceptions are and the myths. So the first one is that stress is external. And so...
Yeah, a lot of people believe stress is happening to us and around us. It's in our external world.
Yeah.
So it's the traffic jam, it's the person who's shouting at us, it's our boss because they want us to do the deadline, it's children. Our husband, our children, and it's the people around us that are stressing us. It's, as we said, it's our response to what's happening around us. And usually it's something coming from our past, like the example of this lady with the musical instruments being chucked around the table. She went into a fight and flight state over this and it traced back to that event with the cat being run over. When she'd had that realisation about the cat, that she could have hugged her mum, she went back to the recent memory and went, well, I could have put dinner on the kitchen table.
Yeah.
Because there's no more fight and flight. There was no reason to take that personally, and she wasn't doing it on purpose.
Well, the other thing as well,
she was just
the other thing I just want to react is that when you sort of haven't got these under control and you are going into fight and flight, what happens is when you're shifted from who you're being are, your calm self, and you get shifted and you react to a situation or a circumstance or a tone of voice or whatever, and you now go into fight and flight in whatever response that'll be, whether it's anger, whether it's rage or whatever that is. What you have to realise is the people around you get affected.
Yes.
And they get massively affected. And if you've got young children, very young children, they see that as a model of behaviour that is acceptable. And so, so there is a lot to the reactions that you have in your fight and flight response, because it's not who you are. And many of us have reacted to it, me personally, where we've reacted disproportionately over something irrelevant, got really angry, had a big meltdown, then acted and behaved in a certain way, and then gone into guilt after because you've just realised, hang on a minute, why have I done that? Why have I done that? So now you're running two conflicts. You're running this fight and flight conflict and the conflict that caused the fight and flight, and you're also running the guilt conflict after because of now the way you've behaved and you've reacted, and now you're just adding to more and more of your emotional pain and suffering because of your responses and your reactions when triggered by fight and flight. And so it has a lot of external influence as well. I want to say it has a lot of connotations that actually can be negative when you're acting and behaving in fight and flight.
Absolutely. The irony is that we think fight and flight stress is external, but actually it's because it's internal. But our internal fight and flight has an effect on our external world.
Yes,
that's the irony of it. We think it's external, but no, it's our internal state that's affecting our external world. It's affecting people around us. It's affecting the environment. It's affecting the way we act and the way we behave. And it's causing problems in our external world, but it's coming from an internal response.
Yeah.
And once we change it and we see the real perception, which is kind of laughable, a lot of the people I see, they look at that response they were having and they laugh.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I used to
insane.
go, what the hell? Why the hell did I react like that over something so innocuous sometimes? And I go, but then you hear people saying, oh yeah, well, it's, it's just building up and building up and building up and building up and then go bang, and all these. It's not that at all.
It's like when I dropped my keys, after I clear dropped my keys and I dropped them a couple of times afterwards for the first time, I remember I was actually outside my front door and I dropped them and I sort of smiled and went, I dropped my keys.
Yeah.
And I laughed about it. I actually had a big grin on my face instead of the anger because I realised it was just so stupid what I was doing before to get annoyed at my keys. So no, one of the myths is that stress is external and it's really not external to us. One of the other myths is
it's our feeling thing it's part of our life.
We think it's part of life.
Yeah,
and that unfortunately it's become part of life. But it's not supposed to be part of life. We're not supposed to be running around like headless chickens in stress constantly. Yeah. If we are doing that, and I've known quite a few people do that.
I know a lot of people now that do it.
Yeah. I've known people do it, and they're doing it because of how they're responding inside to things around them. Life shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't be in stress constantly, and we shouldn't be. It's not to say we don't have events or situations that can be stressful. Obviously, griefs and things like that, but life should not be a stress. We should not be as stressed as we are today. There is no reason for it. Regardless of what's going on around us, there is no reason to be as stressed as we are today.
I do hear some people, and this was a belief that I had, and you might want to shed some light on this, actually. But they will say that when they're stressed out, they perform better.
Oh, yes.
So, I used to find if I get stressed out, I'd perform better. And I perform better under stress than when I'm not under stress. And so I sort of look back now and realise how much tosh I was talking at the time of doing it. Yeah. But at the time, I really believed it. And there's probably many people out there that do believe that actually perform better under stress. And a little bit... someone said to me the other day, yeah, but you're going to need a bit of stress in your life. Because, I'm like, what? Because actually... People really believe that it's a part of your life and you should have it and you should utilise it and it's really good to have it. It's insane.
That's a very good point. That is one of the things that people do believe, that it gives it motivates you or helps you. And the truth is, which we're going to explain a bit more in detail, is that when that's happening, you're in your adrenaline state. You're in your sympathetic nervous system, which means the adrenaline kicks in. You become more energized and motivated, or not motivated, but become more energized. You might feel a bit stronger, you might feel a bit more motivated, but it's false. It's a fake strength, it's a false motivation because it's the fight and flight state.
Yes.
So although it appears that you are
a bit like if an alligator jumped out on you, you're going to be very motivated.
But that's what fight and flight's for. It's designed for dangerous situations. Yeah. You need it.
Didn't I perform well?
Yeah, great.
I was brilliant. I was like amazing when that, And
in that situation, give yourself a pat on the back.
Probably
obviously, only if you make it away from the croc. If you don't, then
Yeah, but I mean,
but essentially, But essentially, when people think they need to be stressed to get work done. That is a massive myth, and the reality is, once you switch the stress off, you are way more productive. In fact, you are more productive than you ever thought possible, because you get things done quicker, you focus more, you can achieve more things, you're more creative. So many things happen when you are less stressed. When you are believing that you're more productive in stress. That can be a learning sometimes. Sometimes we've learnt that accidentally.
Yeah.
So something's happened to us, we felt down, not motivated, we've been put into fight and flight accidentally, and we've gone, oh my God, I get so much more done in this state. That's not a good learning.
No, that's a learning I had and a learning I had to get rid of.
Yes, like you said, you thought it was a good thing.
Yeah.
And because you didn't know the difference. Yeah. You didn't know.
I would put myself into a stress state because I think I'd needed to do that to get things done.
Yeah, a lot of people do. That's why I drink coffee.
Yeah.
That's the biggest reason to drink coffee, because it puts you into the fight and flight response, only in a minor way.
Yeah.
But it's a stimulant. Any stimulant puts you into that sympathetic nervous system, and that's why people drink coffee and all the sugar drinks to keep them awake. Again, it's stimulating, putting you into that sympathetic nervous system. That's not actually a really good way of doing it. There is a certain area where it can be useful, but not to keep you energized and motivated, or to keep your strength running or your energy running.
Yeah, and I suppose that's where you will, if you do that for too long, your cells in your body will get burnout.
You will burn out very quickly, yes.
And also you will make you very ill.
Basically what I've noticed with friends and clients is they'll keep themselves in a stress state for a month or two, then they'll burn out and they'll be tired and exhausted for a month. Then they'll stress again for a month or two, then they'll burn out. Yeah. And it's a cycle that happens. I have seen people stay in that stress state for a long, long period of time, years and years, but ultimately they'll become ill at the end of it when the stress state calms or starts to switch off. Yeah. It's not a state you can maintain forever. I've known people do it for a few years, but it's really not. For a long time. It's really not a good thing, and ultimately you will have a crash at the end of it. Yeah. So you don't want to do that. You don't want that to happen. I know it happened to me when I was younger. Like I said, I had a nervous breakdown when I was 21, as I mentioned before, and I was in a stress state for a long period of time. And something happened that pushed me over the edge. I got triggered into another fight and flight response, and I just couldn't take it. I couldn't take it any longer. I'd had enough. I was done, and I just had that breakdown. Yeah. So we're coming from experience of the fight and flight response, but back then we didn't understand it. We do now, and we want to share, the myths around it. So the other thing is, as
the big one. This is the big one.
Yes,
this is the big one. This is the big one. This is the one I love, and the biggest misunderstanding is that stress is emotional or mental. Yes. This is a massive problem for people, and that actually makes things worse because we believe that stress is our emotions and our thoughts, and the problem is that when we believe that, we then either think we're emotional wrecks or we think we're going nuts, and neither of those two things are correct. Stress is not mental emotional. Yes, the thoughts and the emotions become involved, obviously, but it's actually biological. As I've said, I don't mean it's chemical, I don't mean it's inbuilt into your DNA, I mean it's the fight and flight response, it's biological. You're going into a biological state because you think you're in danger. Then the emotions and thoughts kick in. But stress is biological. It's a response that's being triggered unnaturally. It's nothing to do with being emotionally unstable or mentally nuts. But because we've been taught that, that's what we believe. So a lot of guys with depression, for instance, they'll feel depressed, they'll feel low. Then because they've been taught on the unconscious level that it's their thinking, their emotions that are a problem, they'll start having really random thoughts in their brain that they don't understand, that make no sense, and then they'll start saying things to themselves like, "Oh my God, I'm nuts, I'm crazy, I'm insane." And those beliefs then make the depression worse because you actually think you're going nuts, you're going crazy. Yeah. And it fuels it.
And it fuels it. And then women have kind of reverse going. I'm not being sexist, but this is a generalisation, I know that. But women then have the reverse because women are taught they're emotional creatures. And yes, to a certain extent, they are a bit more emotional than men, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But then it's been when they're feeling depressed or they're anxious, they then go, "Oh my God, I'm an emotional creature, and I'm unstable, and I'm this, and I'm a mess. And that's not true either. The emotional side of a woman is natural. The emotional side of a woman is beautiful. Yeah,
I totally agree. And I mean, I have lots of people, I work with lots of women, and some of the things they tell me, I have to say, right, okay, where did you learn this, or
Yes.
why do you think that about yourself?
Yeah.
What makes you think that you're an emotional wreck, or you're no good, or you can't cope, or you're just totally stressed out and you can't? All these beliefs or
All these
stuff,
beliefs.
they really do believe that about themselves, and I have to point out, well, that's not true.
It's not.
You're
It's not
amazing.
true.
Don't matter who you are. You're an
No.
amazing human being. You've just got all these learnings and all of these responses and all these beliefs that you've created about yourself because maybe in an isolated incident you couldn't do what it is you wanted to do, or you might have been told that by somebody else or made to feel really bad. But it's not really true who you are. And I spend a lot of time getting people back to being very confident because they've just made up all of these beliefs or stuff that what's really going on from that actually isn't going on.
No, and it does come from a learning. I prefer the word learning rather than belief these days.
Yes.
Because learning, it's a better way of saying it, I think. But it's just a learning we've got, and the emotional side of women is if they're just being themselves, that's beautiful. That's a lovely thing. When you're having a fight and flight response and your emotions are all over the place, that's because of fight and flight. It's not because of who you are. And men, it's not who you are. It's a fight and flight response. So you're not emotional, you're not mental. It's just a fight and flight response. And if more people could understand that, if more people would get that, then people would be a lot calmer about it. And they'd realise, wait, it's not me. And the other thing is, some people that experience severe things, and they might think that they're evil or they're wrong or they're bad or they're dangerous, and that also drives behaviour as well. And you might have those thoughts, or even darker thoughts, and those darker thoughts then drive behaviour. They're not who you are. It is a fight and flight response, and in that fight and flight response, you can behave in all kinds of ways. Yeah. So
mostly self-destructive if it's negative.
And it's mostly self-destructive. Yeah. But the good news about this is that fight and flight can be switched off, because if it can be switched on, it can also be switched off because it's not a natural state. So the normal emotions that we feel, we don't need to switch those off because those dissipate from our body naturally. Let's take the example of grief because it's the most obvious one.
Yes.
So when someone passes or you break up with someone, there is a grieving period of time, and that period of time, in my experience, lasts anywhere from a month to 3 months of natural grief. But what people get stuck in is the fight and flight response. So they have the natural grief dissipates from them naturally, but the reason they're grieving for long periods of time is because they're stuck in fight and flight, because now it's no longer the natural emotion. So the fight and flight response can be switched off. The natural emotion has already left the system, whatever it is. It maybe you got angry, at something that's happened. That natural anger is gone. You're just now in fight and flight, and you've made it about you. That can be switched off because that is biological.
Yes.
And that's the good news.
Yeah. So the other thing as well, we also have a favourite, one of my favourites as well. Another myth is that stress is caused by others.
It's
stress is caused by others.
Yeah, it's a classic thing. We're always blaming the other person. We live in a society of blame
and excuses,
and we are taught to blame the other person. And you only have to look at the world around us to do that.
We've only got to watch football these days. Everyone's blaming who the manager is and blaming the player and blaming this. And what do you think then, Graham? Oh, I think the manager's this, Man United that, Mourinho this, the board this. It's always a blame for something.
Everyone blames everyone else. You look at the government, they blame everybody. Yeah. No one's ever taking any responsibility for how they're feeling inside. Yes, we're not saying people don't make mistakes. We're not saying that people don't do things that are not necessarily right or good all the time. We are human, we make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, from small mistakes to very, very severe mistakes. But they are mistakes. And it's our response to it that's the problem. And if everyone could learn this, if everyone could learn that our response is the problem and change the response, there would be so much more peace in this world.
Yes.
Because once you change your internal response, then everything changes around you. It's like magic. Yeah. And if everyone did that, everyone would calm down, everyone would relax.
And so for those of you out there going, but I don't know how to, well, there's a very simple way to do it.
There is a simple way to do that. So how do you switch off fight and flight? Yeah. Well, before we talk about that,
let's go into the two phases. I want to
explain the two phases because this is really important to understand. It's a little bit technical, but I'm going to make it as simple as possible. Yeah. So what's actually happening in our body when we're in fight and flight? So basically, fight and flight started with a Judy moment, a shock, something unexpected, dramatic, isolating, no coping strategy. And we're going to fight and flight. And the fight and flight is actually our sympathetic nervous system. So it's part of our nervous system. We have a main central nervous system, and that's made up of two parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. But let's just call them stress and repair. So your sympathetic nervous system is your stress state. Your parasympathetic nervous system is your repair state. So call it stress and repair. So you have a Yudin moment, a shock, you go into the stress state, the fight and flight. And when you're in that, you will be experiencing general emotions of anger, fear, frustration, injustice, betrayal, resentment, all those emotions that stimulate you.
That energise you,
powerless,
the energy. Yeah.
The energy emotions, the emotions that stimulate energy in you, that make you feel powerful. Yeah. And that's why a lot of people want to hold on to their anger, because it makes them feel powerful. And often, sometimes, people
it
say
makes them feel energised as well. It gives them like the adrenaline. It means
that's right. It's kicking in adrenaline.
Yes.
And they'll say to me, well, I need my anger because that's the only way I can argue back. No, that's a learning. You've learned that anger is the only way you can argue back, but that's because you've never been the real you. You've either been feeling weak and small and not being able to say anything, or you've got really angry and you're in your power, so to speak.
You just now. That's how I used to be.
Yes.
But I was, believe it or not, I would most of the time I'd really be passive. And if I was really wanted to say my piece, I'd have to get really angry in order to say it, because I found it very difficult to say what I wanted to say in my normal state, because I felt I felt wrong in doing it. So if I wanted to say something, I'd have to get really angry, I'd wind myself up, then I'd say it in the wrong way, everyone would hate me, and then I feel really guilty afterwards. So
and that's a perfect example of how people do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is pretty much every client that comes to me and Steve now.
Yeah.
We in that situation, at some point we've learned we can't speak up for ourselves for some reason.
Yeah.
So we're now in that timid state. We then learn, wait, if we get angry enough, we can say it, but neither of those are actually who we are. And if we just become who we are by switching off fight and flight, we then can say how we feel and say what we want in a more natural way.
So the first stage is obviously the stress state, where we get energized.
We get energized, and it's anger, that's frustration, injustice, all those energy emotions.
Yeah.
But then at some point, we move into the repair state. And the repair state is where we have lower emotions. We have sadness, we have depression, we have upset, tiredness. Yeah. We feel alone in that state. All of the emotions that are linked with depression and low mood are in a repair state. So people think depression is a stress state. It's not. It's a repair state. And our body's trying to heal, although it's stuck in healing. So if you are being sad, you're feeling low, you're feeling alone, you're feeling down, you're feeling tired and exhausted all the time, your body's actually in the repair state. It's actually in the parasympathetic nervous system. But if you're in an anger state a lot of the time, or you're being made to be angry or frustrated or injustice, you're in the stress state. Neither state is actually good. You don't want to be in either one. You want to be in the middle. Yeah. You want to be in the middle, balanced.
I think a good way of looking at it is like the pendulum.
Yes.
A pendulum was a good way of looking at it. So you had stress on one side of the pendulum and you had repair on the other side of the pendulum.
Yeah.
You want to be bang in the middle.
You want to be balanced.
Yes.
A lot of people swing on pendulums.
Yeah.
And the most common pendulum I see these days is stepping into your power. Everyone talks about this, and we're all trying to step into our power and be powerful and strong, and empower people. And there's nothing wrong with empowering people, but what you're trying to do is, by trying to be powerful, you're kind of going away from the feeling weak and vulnerable and not strong, and you're trying to logically go, well, I'm powerful now. But you need to be in the middle. Neither of those two states are good. It's the same thing if a bloke feels weak.
Down a gym, loads of exercise, putting on the muscles. Well, yeah, I'm strong.
But if you feel weak, it will be very hard for you to get as strong as you perhaps want to be or could be if you just switched it off and went to the pendulum,
absolutely.
Went to the middle. And often you see guys trying to fake strength because that's what we perceive as a man. We perceive we have to be strong, and women these days have different perceptions. Like they must step into their power, and they feel always in competition with men these days, and I see it a lot in my clinic. And really, we just want men and women to be themselves. You don't want to be one or the other. You just want to be who you are as a person.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because what I wanted to say is we're constantly programmed or pushed or believe that we need to be someone else to be successful, to be a certain person or whatever, and we're not really being our true selves. And what we do is we we try so hard. We try so hard not to be us and try so hard to be somebody else with their model of the world or their perceptions and beliefs. And actually, what you're actually doing is causing yourself a massive problem.
You are. And often we try and be ourselves for two main reasons. One, because we think other people want us to be something that we're not. So we think people won't like who we are. And the worst reason is because we don't like who we are.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is, the reason we often don't like who we are is because of the mistakes we make or the behaviours that we have that we know we do secretly, but we don't like them. But here's the problem, here's the rub. We think that's who we are, so that's why we don't like us. Actually, we don't realise we was in fight and flight when we did that. So whatever behaviour you may have done in the past, however you've treated someone, or whatever you've done to somebody, however you've reacted, it wasn't you. It wasn't the real you. It was a fight and flight state, or it was a learning. You learnt to do that to get what you wanted. Yeah. Perhaps the most common two ways that people do that is either through anger or through manipulation. People do those two things. Either men like to use violence to get what they want. Women are a bit more subtle, but men use manipulation as well. So it depends. Or control. Control is another behaviour that we actually beat ourselves up for and we don't like. In fact, one of my friends came to me recently and she'd actually had a meltdown because she had manipulated and controlled a situation, and before that, because she wanted her own way. So she wanted to get something and she didn't think that just being honest and being herself would do it, so she used manipulation and control. Now, she hates manipulation and control. In fact, this is the thing she moaned about her ex-partner, that it was always manipulating and controlling. Yeah. And she suddenly had a massive wake-up call. Because in that moment when she did this, she went, oh my God, I'm doing what I hate. Yeah. Because we all do actually what we hate. Yeah. So if you want to find the things that are wrong in you, just find the things that you moan about, and you'll realise that they're running in you somewhere. Yeah. But ultimately, she realised, oh crap, I'm doing this. I've done this in times. And then it all came back to the times that she's done it. But really, all that meant was she was in a fight and flight state when she was doing it. She wasn't being the real her. She was in fight and flight. And you can actually go back and change those fight and flight responses so you never behave that way again. So if you can accept that wasn't you, and this is not to give you an excuse for bad behaviour. So don't just go, I'm in fight and flight and carry on doing it. That's mental. But to recognise that, it can be changed because people think this is who they are.
No, I think what you're going to say is that's not okay. What you need to do is, if you are in fight and flight, recognise you're in fight and flight, and then go and switch it off. Change it.
And that's what you can change it. Just don't think that's who you are, because it's not who you are. We all make mistakes. We all go into fight and flight and have bad behaviour. All of us, me, Steve, everyone I've ever treated, everyone. But it's not who we are. And a lot of people, what they do is they go into the guilt and shame. Once they've gone into the guilt and shame of it, they've now owned it. Yeah. Those guilts and shames will drive further. And that drives more behaviour. More behaviour in that way, worse behaviour, yeah. And they beat themselves up more. And the worst thing is they'll never admit it to anyone because they don't think anyone will understand it. Yeah. And they don't think it can be changed because they think it's who they are. It's not. It's a fight and flight state. Yeah. You've just gone into your sympathetic nervous system and you've chosen a way to react. Yeah, so just before we leave, one of the, we'll go on to the next topic, is basically one thing that we discussed about this a while ago, but one of the biggest problems people do is they'll go into the stress state. Yep. Then they'll come out of the stress state, which means the energy starts to dissipate and they'll start going into repair. And then they'll start feeling down, tired, depressed, whatever the less energy state is. But then all of a sudden they will now think or have a perception that that's now where there's something wrong. So in a way, they've got it back to front. They believe that it's good to be in the stress state and it's bad to be in the repair state because they need to be energised because that's normal. And the repair state of like the tiredness or the depression is actually wrong. So what happens is they then hijack the repair process to try and get back into a stress state because the stress state seems more natural, or to them they think it's natural because it's now energised and they're feeling more energised. Absolutely correct. Actually it's not. What they're doing is they're actually hijacking the repair process, and
And so they get caught in a cycle of going into stress, coming into the repair, and then not liking those feelings of repair. And instead of letting the repair process run its full course, is hijack it and push himself back into stress. So,
absolutely correct. That's exactly what people do. They think the repair state, the feeling low, the feeling down, the feeling tired, and some of the symptoms that go with repair state, like flus and colds, because you actually get a flu and cold in a repair state, not in a stress state. We are taught those are bad. We're weak. Oh, we mustn't be ill, we're weak. So then we put ourselves back into that stress state. No, the repair state is there to heal your body. Your cells are healing when you're in a repair state, and a lot of illnesses are in a repair state. It's not good to stay stuck in a repair state. If you're stuck in a repair state for weeks or months, no, that's not good. But a repair state for a few days or a week is natural, and you should go into it. Let me give you some natural repair states that you may recognise. So the body goes through this stress and repair state every single day, even when it's not put into a Yudin moment, from a Yudin moment. And if it's not started by a Yudin moment, that's okay, it's natural. So the most obvious one is waking up. When we wake up, we get up in the mornings, we're moving around, our body's in a slight stress state. It's a good stress, it's fine, but you and me sitting here talking, we're upright. If we do anything that day, like we exercise, we then have a bit more stress. But later on that night, when we sit down and rest, which should be about 6 p.m, but for most people these days, I think it's about 8 or 9 p.m, it's changed, which is not great. But when we relax, that's when we go into repair. And anything we did that day that was strenuous, when we go to sleep, we'll repair that night.
And that's why most people then, when they're in that state, will feel the aches and pains of the day.
That's when you start aching, feeling a bit sore because you're in repair. But that's okay. That's natural. You are repairing, and that's your cells growing. So that's fine. The same thing happens to exercise in the gym. When you go to the gym and you exercise, the actual moment you are exercising, you're putting your body into stress. That's okay, it's normal. Later on, a few hours later, you relax, you move into repair. That's when your body aches.
Yeah.
A bodybuilder actually does this on purpose. A bodybuilder stresses the muscle so much, it will tear. Because the bodybuilder has learnt that to make the muscle stronger, he has to weaken it first. That's actually what's happening in the muscles. When you're putting the muscle into a very severe stress state, the muscle cells are weakening. Then later on, in the repair state, once you've stopped exercising and relaxed, they start growing, and it's the growing of the cells that's painful.
Yes.
It's the growing of cells that aches or burns in the case of a torn muscle. But bodybuilders have recognised that the only way to make something stronger is to make it weaker first. That's actually what happens when we're having an emotional response. The muscle skeletal system weakens first, and then it grows, and when it grows, that's why we get pain. But this happens all day long, naturally. The same things happens during sex. When we're stressed, we have a stressful day, we're in fight and flight, we come home, hopefully to our partner.
Yes.
We have sex, we have an orgasm, we move into repair, and we now relax and we want to go to sleep.
Yes.
Sorry,
speak
ladies.
Speak for yourself, mate.
Yeah, speak for yourself. Okay, well, fair enough.
Sorry, listeners.
No, that's okay. That depends how much fibre you got. I don't know. I've never used it.
Have you run out?
I've run out, yeah. So I've got to restart. Right. So, no, it's a normal state. And sorry, ladies, when you orgasm, it is the reason men fall asleep is because they've orgasmed and they've gone into repair state. So it happens with natural things as well. Food, for instance, same thing. When you eat, you move into repair. So food actually moves you into repair state from the stress. So that's why often after a meal at night, certainly, you feel tired and you want to fall asleep.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. These things are moving in and out of repair. In fact, I'm going to give a really good example of how I used this with my mum one year. And I used this knowledge to keep an illness at bay until she could resolve it. So it was one year, it was many years ago, it was at Lakeside, which is a big shopping centre in Essex. And it was about 5 days before Christmas. And we went to do some shopping, and my mum was feeling really ill and tired. She was feeling giddy and she was weak and she was having type cold symptoms. And she said, I haven't got time for this. I've got 4 days before Christmas. I've got loads of things to go and do. I've got lunches and dinners to go to, and I haven't got time to be ill. So I said, okay, well, I can take this away for you instantly right now, but in 4 days you've got to let it come out of your system and repair. So she said, okay. So I know that a cold is in the repair state. So she was in stress and she's moved to the repair state. This is not traditional medicine, by the way, guys. This is not the way a doctor would view it. But this is how it actually works. And I can say that categorically because I've helped people heal colds, flus, bronchitis, bacteria, infections, chicken pox. I've helped them heal them faster naturally than traditional medicine. So I can categorically say I've done this over years. So my mum was having cold symptoms, and she so I know she's in a repair state. So she was stressing, now she's in repair. So I said to her, okay, I can put you back into stress for a few days. Now, I don't recommend doing this, guys. Not for long. This is what a lot of people do. But in this instance, I used it to help her a little bit. So what I did was I used nutrition. And I took Mum to Costa's, I think, or Starbucks. Gave her a shot of espresso coffee. Put her straight back to stress. Made her eat some chocolate muffins. When I say made, I didn't force them down her throat. I just bought her some. I wasn't going, went and had a KFC. And all these foods put her back to stress. And I also made her think about something that I know was stressing her at the time. Nothing about her, just something at work that I knew was kind of stressing, and nothing. She was obviously saying a bit personally because that's what she did, but it wasn't technically. It was something happening at work. It wasn't anything to do with her I specifically. And within 10 minutes, all her symptoms are lifted. 10 minutes of just doing this, all her symptoms. She was dancing around Lakeside, and I said, all you got to do is maintain that state. Eat food that's not quite as good for you, keeps you in stress for a few days. But at Christmas, once you've gone to all your parties and things, eat healthy, relax, and the cold will come back out again, and in a few days it will heal. And that's exactly what happened. She technically didn't actually believe me, but she followed my advice, because my mum's old school, but she followed my advice. I mean, she was dancing around Lakeside, she couldn't believe it. All of her symptoms had vanished. But then what happened was, after she'd been to her, by the Tuesday, which was Christmas Eve, her body had started going, oh, you know what, we were nearly there, we can relax now. She had her last lunch, and at the last lunch she was already starting to have the symptoms come out again, because her body knew what it kind of said to itself. It knew that we were going to stay in stress for a little while, and then 4 days later we were going to come back into repair. And she went into repair over Christmas for a little bit. I think it lasted 2 or 3 days, and the body healed and the cold vanished.
A very interesting story.
But it's a very good example of how stress and repair work and how you can kind of manipulate it a little bit. Another very interesting tip, that if you have a migraine, for instance, what you can do to get rid of a migraine very quickly is have a very strong shot of coffee. And that will put you straight back into stress, because migraines are a repair state. So if you have a meeting to go to and you've got a migraine and you need to do the meeting, then have a strong coffee. Don't drink water at this point, because it'll make the migraine worse. Drink coffee, it'll put you back to stress, and you'll be able to do the meeting. As long as it's not it's a very severe migraine, and it may not work. If it's a small migraine, it will put you back to stress. Later on, when you come out, the migraine will come back again, because you're moving into repair. This is not solving the problem. This is a little couple of tips. It's a little hack for your system. But ideally, that's what's happening when you're ill. And this is what people don't realise. And all I do when someone's ill, I find out what state they're in, stress or repair, find a uni moment, switch it off, and
healed.
And they start healing, they start getting better. Yeah. That's not all I do, that's part of what I do, but that's one of the biggest things that I do, because that's what starts it all. Yeah. Certainly with depression, anxiety and things like that, that's definitely the way it all starts. Because I've done it so much on people.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fascinating. So, well, we got to the hour mark. So much for our shorter version this time.
Yeah, we tried to do a shorter version.
We do try.
It's very difficult. There's so much information we want to cover.
Yeah.
There's so much information.
There's so much I haven't spoken about in this particular podcast, which I'd like to have done. But anyway,
sorry about that.
That's all right.
I stole the show there,
didn't in full flow today, mate. But no, I mean, you know, you're the man. You're the man they call Jonathan. So anyway,
I'm one of them in they call John. There are other Jonathans out there. I'm one of them. Yeah.
So anyway, so just go really a recap. I mean, really just to let people sort of get an overview now. It's really just to say that actually stress is just your response. So it's your response to an external environmental situation, and it's how you're reacting. And if this is a problem and it's triggering you, and these triggers are constantly putting you into stress states or behaviours or way of being, then you might want us to actually change that, and you can switch that off using the DTO.
You can switch it off using the DTO system. It's very, very simple. You can switch off triggers. You can switch off your fight and flight response. It's often very, very quick. Yes. And once you do, you just go back to being who you really are. The fight and flight is off. The fight and flight is not who you are. Once that goes, you go back to being the real you. And things change and you become calmer, happier, more peaceful, more relaxed, no illnesses, and you live a happier, more peaceful life.
Yeah, and I'm going to come up with the new SPT. I just made this up on the spot, which is the
SPT.
stress prevention technique. so if you want an SPT, I've just
You do realise that sounds like some kind of sexual venereal disease or something. I'll be honest.
Yeah, so if you want a stress prevention technique, here's a really great one to start, and that's to do this from the outset. Is stop taking things personally.
Yes, stop taking them personally. And you know what you can do? One of my clients actually said to me, she actually gave this to her grandma or aunt. She just gave her the first part of the process of DTO to ask what it means to you and about you. So when something happens, just ask yourself, what does this mean to me and about me? And wait
you
till
won't
you
like
get
the
answer.
answer.
You might not like it, but if you can accept that and go, because my client said her aunt actually got a little bit of relief, or quite a bit of relief, from just recognising what it meant to her and about her.
Well, you actually, this is one of the things I found is I learned a lot about myself.
Yeah.
Just by asking that question.
And a lot of people do. They learn loads that they didn't know from other therapies, from traditional therapies, because they didn't know it was about them. So when you ask that one question, what does this mean to me and about me, you'll actually learn a lot more about yourself, and it will help you calm down and relax and not take things as personally.
Yeah, great. So I think this has been a really great podcast again. I think all of our podcasts are great because I'm saying for a very biased opinion.
You are very biased.
I'm very biased.
Very biased.
But I want to thank you, listeners, and to putting up with Jonathan for this episode.
What are you trying to say? Are you trying to say I stole the limelight? Are you a bit jealous?
A little bit.
Are you taking that personally?
Yeah, I've taken it personally.
You're taking it personally. You're stressing. You're in fight and flight. What does that mean to you and about you?
I'm jealous.
Yeah,
right.
That's it.
Right. So anyway, so if you've taken a lot from this, and you sort of would like to find out more about how you can switch off your triggers, or how to switch off stuff from the past that causes stress, you can reach out to us both. You can reach out to me on healingthemind.co.uk. You can reach out to Jonathan on decodingpain.com, and you can email us in privacy, and that will be insideouteffect@gmail.com. So we thank you again for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you here, Jonathan, as always. I think obviously if you are looking to get us two amazing individuals to come and talk at an event, please reach out to us at the same email address, insideouteffect@gmail.com. I think we're going to do Law of Attraction next week, aren't we?
Yeah, but Law of Attraction we're going to do next week, which is a big subject. I didn't realise that it is still a big subject for people. I learned that many years ago. I didn't realise it's so popular still, but apparently it is, because we're giving a talk on it in June.
In June we're doing a talk on it.
And it's actually it's almost sold out already, the venue we're doing it. So it's obviously a very popular subject. So I'm really looking forward to Law of Attraction.
The good thing about it is we've got lots of secrets about that.
We've got a few secrets about Law of Attraction.
And how to get it to work for you.
How to get it to work, yeah. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, great. So again, thanks again, Jonathan. We will see you next week on the Inside Out Effect podcast. And for all you listeners, have a great week. And so it's goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from me. Good night.
Bye.